Hey, what's up, mortals? It is zor-el here with a new video for you. Welcome to Season 3, Part 8 of What If Izuku Was a Stand User. Just wanted to greet you guys by saying, I'm sorry to start off on a sad note, but this episode and the rest of the Stand User episodes are dedicated to the late, great Billy Kometz. For those of you who don't know who he is, Billy was a voice actor, most known for his roles as Naofumi in The Rising of the Shield Hero, Ferdinand von Aegir in Fire Emblem, and most importantly for our purposes, or for those of you who like JoJo, he was the voice of Josuke in Part 4. He passed away about a month ago now from stage 4 colon cancer. He was 35. We will always remember him, all the passion he put into his work, no matter if it was a video game or Western animation or anime, all the light he spread to the world. We will always remember the passion. Shine on, you crazy diamond. Now with that out of the way, you guys are in for a treat this episode. So, we begin. Shigaraki, his Nomu bodyguard, and the 5 villains in his heist group were idling away at the League of Villains hideout. Minutes ago, they returned from the Tokyo Speedwagon location with no luck in finding the arrow. Aside from Moonfish losing control halfway through their search and brutally killing 5 people, their heist was far less homicidal and more according to Keikaku, translator's note, Keikaku means plan, than the one Akira's team experienced. Speaking of which, Kurogiri's warp gate appeared in the corner of the room as Twice leapt from the gateway in a frightened boot. "Clear a table! Stat! We have a false alarm!" Everyone became alarmed at Twice's franticness as he quickly searched for an empty table with Spitter and Akira behind him. The villains were quick to notice Toga being carried in Otoishi's arms, along with her bleeding leg. "Good heavens! What on earth happened to you guys?" Mr. Compress probed, noticing the golden artifact lodged in Toga's leg. "We found the stand arrow, but it stabbed Toga in her leg," Otoishi answered, laying Himiko down on a table Twice set up. "Stabbed? Wait. You guys found the stand arrow?" Mustard questioned. What happened? Did she stab herself with that thing? No, No, kid. I'll explain everything in a second. Just give me a moment. Red hot chili pepper! Dobby appeared through the portal as the violet gate shut behind him. The first thing he noticed was most of the villains surrounding Himiko and Akira as Chili Pepper grabbed the arrow in Toga's leg, yanked it out, and placed the artifact down on the end of the bar top. "Everyone, do not touch that arrow!" Otoishi checked on Himiko to see if she was alive. The bloody gash in her leg seemed to stop bleeding, but her eyes were still white and her body was twitching and unresponsive to the others. "Is she alright?" Twice asked with concern. "Please tell me she's gonna make it, man!" "I think so," Otoishi responded as he finally took off his burglar mask. "She's not responsive, but she's got a pulse. If my experience with the arrow is anything to go by, she'll wake up in a minute or so. Let's just give her some time to come through." For a brief moment, things were quiet, until Shigaraki asked Dobby about Muscular's whereabouts. And, speak of the double, another warp gate opened from the ceiling as a pair of boots sank into the room, accompanied by the sounds of a very disgruntled Muscular. "Kurogiri! I'll kill you for this!" Muscular dropped to the ground, staggering to his knees as everyone backed away from the man, sensing he was not in a happy mood. "Ah! A golden opportunity to fight the baddest woman in the country, and that gas freak ruined it! I'll rip out his insides for this!" "You will do no such thing!" Kurogiri appeared before the villains as he stared down the ripped villain. Before Kurogiri could say a word, Muscular dashed forward, throwing a massive haymaker at the misty villain, but Kurogiri spawned a portal in front of his massive fist, portaling his arm in another dimension and evading the punch. The others stepped back as conflict erupted, with Shigaraki ordering his Nomu to break up the fight as the beast rushed in, wrapping its arms around Muscular's stomach and lifting the man into the air before he could destroy the hideout. Kurogiri ordered the man to stand down, but Muscular's first reaction was to throw a hearty elbow into Nomu's face. But the blow had no effect on the monster as it tightened its squeeze around his waist, giving the psychopath a tight bear hug he could not get out of. "Muscular, control yourself," Cease your hostility at once, otherwise I will have no choice but to remove you from the team. Muscular stopped trying to break free from Nomu's grasp as his eyes went to Kurogiri, not believing the villain was serious about removing the strongest member of their team. I don't wish to kick you from our group, Imasuji. We have a great need for your skills, but your current aggression is a detriment to what we're trying to achieve. Calm down. We're back at the hideout. We retrieved what we set out for. It's over. Muscular was silent as he began thinking about the situation, realizing he was on the deep end. He was still livid he couldn't get his much-wanted fight with Mirko, but knew Kurogiri had the high ground in this situation. As such, Muscular scoffed at Kurogiri's demands and powered down his quirk. Pfft. Kurogiri gave a nod to Shigaraki, and the leader of the villains ordered his Nomu to release Muscular as the villain turned around and sized up the large-beaked monster who held him down. Why the hell did you bring me back here? Huh? I told you to leave me behind. Why? So you could go down in the last stand and end up in the slammer? Akira rebutted, joining the conversation. We were there to steal an artifact and leave as quietly as possible, not cause enough destruction to bring every pro hero in the city down on top of us. We almost lost Dobby and Spinner tonight because you couldn't keep your bloodlust under control and follow my lead. Had this heist gone as I planned, we wouldn't have been in the crap you put us in. Careful, scrawny. Muscular angrily warned as he took a few steps towards Akira, not knowing that his stand was out and ready to defend himself if need be. I know you're fresh out of retirement, but I think I need to remind you of who we are. We're villains. We kill for a living. That's what we do. Wrong! Spinner countered, standing by Akira's side. We're not aimless maniacs that kill for a living. We have goals we wish to achieve that go beyond satisfying selfish bloodlust. Goals that must abide by State's principles. Choosing who lives and dies is the key to following his ideology, and you have a lot to learn when it comes to sparing lives for the betterment of our end goals. Kurogiri did not like where this argument was going, and he felt he would have to separate Spinner, Akira, and Muscular from one another to prevent another brawl from erupting. But before the conflict could grow more sour, Twice called out to everyone in the room. Guys, Toga's waking up! She didn't go into the light! Worst day ever. Akira turned his head to Toga, who was rubbing her forehead and looking around the room, wondering what happened, as almost every villain in the room was by her side to make sure she was okay. Guys? Toga sluggishly muttered. Toga, you're okay! Oh man, I thought you were a goner back there. I'm so happy you're okay. I told you it was a flesh wound. Huh? Wait, what happened? The girl asked. During our heist, the arrow shot itself into you, Akira answered, approaching the girl. Because of that, you blacked out from its power for a few minutes and, well, here we are. He gave me in twice. A real scare back there, you know. Himiko sat up from the table, rubbing the part of her leg she was jabbed at, noticing she didn't feel any pain, and the gash was in the process of rapidly healing itself. So wait, if she got stabbed by the arrow and survived, does that mean she has a stand now? Mustard questioned, to which Akira nodded at the mask-wearing boy's situation. Akira knew the girl had to be a stand user, but did a little test just to make sure. He floated his stand over the awoken girl as Toga's eyes went right towards the yellow Kappa-looking being glaring at Toga. Can you see me, little girl? Chili Pepper asked. What the heck are you supposed to be? Himiko questioned, looking creeped out at the stand's presence. So you can't see me, eh? Yep, we got us a live one, Akira. This girl's a stand user. Guys, who's this? And why does he look like some weird imaginary friend from some kid show anime? Everyone looked at Toga like they had no idea what she was talking about, unable to see the visibly offended Red Hot Chili Pepper and Akira lightly facepalming himself from that comment. This imaginary friend, as you call it, is my stand, Red Hot Chili Pepper. You and I are the only ones in this room that can see it right now. Stands can only be seen by other stand users, and since the arrow jabbed you and you survived its power, you got a stand now. Congrats! Muscular was near the corner of the room, being the only person in the room unaware at what happened to Toga. All he heard from the back and forth was that they retrieved the arrow, she jabbed herself with it, blacked out, and was awake without knowing the context of everything. He didn't care enough to ask about details, and was still in a ticked-off mood. As such, he decided to get a drink from behind the bar, but then gazed at the stand arrow sitting on the bar top. Muscular huffed and walked towards the relic, grabbing the artifact and examining the etching of the arrowhead. So this is the arrow that we went out to find, huh? The thing that gave that little squirt a power-up, Muscular mumbled to himself. If what that Akira guy said is true, I just need to jab myself with this thing and I could become the baddest force of nature around. I'm already good at killing people, but with this, I could be on a whole other level. I could destroy anyone and everything in my wake, and not even the toughest heroes around would stand a chance against me. Not All Might, not anyone. Akira turned to Kurogiri, asking the villain to get Toga some water, but his vision spotted Muscular grabbing the arrow like he was about to jab himself with it. Whoa, hey, Muscular, what are you doing with that thing? What does it look like? We got this thing so we can become stand users, right? So what are we waiting for? Let's power up and get stronger already. Wait, hold on a sec. You can't just stab yourself with that thing. The arrow has to deem you worthy for it to work. Otherwise it will kill you. Bullshit, Muscular refuted. That little girl got jabbed and she's wide awake, no problem. If a little runt like her can do it, I can do it. That's not... Dude, wait, shut up! You guys costed me a fight with Mirko, so I think I deserve a front-line ticket to a stand ability as compensation. Now shut up and let me become invincible already! Muscular! Akira ordered his stand to swipe the arrow from the man's grasp, but it was too late as the psychopath jabbed his arm with the arrow. Within a split second, he saw a yellow aura appear from his body, but then went unconscious as his body spasmed from the arrow's power, freaking everyone out in the room as the villain began uncontrollably shaking like he was having a violent seizure. Muscular's eyes rolled back into his head as he stopped shaking and fell to the ground, going limp as everyone went silent, as everyone tried to process what just happened. A stupefied Mr. Compressed went to check on the man's condition, but after a very tense moment of silence, he informed the group that Muscular was not breathing and didn't have a pulse. He was dead. The man was dead. What the hell was that? Toga didn't do that when the arrow jabbed her, Twice noted. I warned him. I freaking warned him. Why didn't that idiot listen to me? Akira was shocked that Muscular unknowingly took his life so abruptly, but remembered what he saw back at the facility and how physical he got with that scientist lady, and secretly thought to himself he got what he deserved. But not everyone was happy about Muscular's fate, as Shigaraki stared at Muscular's corpse and began scratching his neck and angrily glaring at Otoishi.
Akira, what the hell just happened? Why is Muscular dead?
'Cause that idiot didn't listen to me when I clearly said that you can't stab yourself with that thing unless it deems you worthy of its power. Otoishi answered, It's not my fault he was too ignorant to listen to me. Akira's words didn't fully reach out to the blue-haired villain as his scratches became more aggressive. Kurogiri, noticing Tomura's miniature tantrum, flew to his side to attempt to calm the man.
Kurogiri, we've had this arrow for roughly 3 minutes, and we've already lost one of the strongest members of our party.
I understand, Tomura.
Kurogiri reformed, approaching the irate villain to talk some sense into him.
I understand you're upset about Muscular's fate, but Akira was clear before this operation about the dangers of the stand arrow. We may have lost Muscular, but in turn, we have an empowered Toga and the chance to bolster our team. All's not lost, Shigaraki.
Kurogiri's voice of reason did little to quell the slowly rising irritation Shigaraki felt as he lifted the hood of his sweatshirt over his head and stormed out of the room before he could lash out on someone.
You know what? Screw the arrow. You guys want to be stand users? Have at it. But I'm not ready yet to risk my life for some power I don't even know will work on me or not. I'm out of here. Kurogiri, get rid of Muscular's corpse. The more I look at it, the more pissed off I get.
As you wish, Tomura.
Kurogiri opened a portal under Muscular's body as the man sank into the ground and disappeared into the purple void, never to be seen again. The room was quiet as everyone didn't know what to do next. That was until Kurogiri approached Akira in the midst of pouring himself some whiskey to calm his nerves. Otoishi was silent about it, but he was actually somewhat thankful Muscular was out of the picture after what he saw him do to that female scientist back at the facility.
Mr. Otoishi, I apologize if this is bad timing, but I recommend we use the arrow to empower our team as soon as possible. A half an hour ago, All for One informed me he's planning another attack against UA High within the coming week. It would be best to give our people the time needed to get accustomed to the arrow's power.
Akira nodded to Kurogiri's request and grabbed the arrow laying on the ground, but noticed that others were hesitant on allowing themselves to be pierced after what they witnessed about a minute ago. Akira could understand everyone's doubts towards the arrow, even if it deemed them worthy, but he quickly thought of an idea on how to better tell who could be a stand user or not, without running the risk of who was worthy and who wasn't. He didn't know if this idea would work, but it was worth a shot. Twice, I know I've asked you this a lot tonight, but can you make a clone of everybody in this room? We could jab each clone with the arrow to see who the arrow could be compatible with without running the risk of killing anyone. Would that work? That's a terrible idea. I love it! Twice exclaimed, pulling out his measuring tape. All I need is everyone's exact body measurements for me to use my quirk. Who's first? Mustard was the first to volunteer, with Big Sis Mag following up and Spinner leading behind. Eventually, the league members were all measured up, and Twice made one clone of everyone in the league, excluding Shigaraki and the USJ Nomu. Otoishi nodded at Twice's work as he gripped the stand arrow and approached Mustard's clone. All right, let's start this little practice session. 3 days later, just outside the UA High School grounds, Class A was listening to a last-second talk from their teacher about the camp they'd be staying at and what to expect. After Aizawa's speech, he'd walked off to speak to Vlad King to make sure everything was all set before they departed. Meanwhile, Uraraka approached Midoriya, sharing how ecstatic she felt about the trip. Midoriya's face became as red as a tomato at how close Uraraka was to his face. Bubba was able to respond that he too was excited about the trip in his usual stuttering way. Uraraka caught on to Izuku's odd behavior, unsure of what was up with her friend, until she froze up, blushed, and tried to flip the situation by playfully and goofishly dancing about going to camp, to which Kaminari and Ashido joined in on the fun. Before everyone boarded the bus, though, Midoriya heard a pair of footsteps approaching him from behind. He heard a familiar girl's voice call his name, and he turned around to spot Class B's Kendo and Monoma standing behind him, with the orange-haired girl glaring at Monoma with her arms crossed, while her classmate looked as if something was bothering him. Hey, Midoriya, listen, I know we haven't crossed paths in a while, but before we head out, I wanted to apologize again for my behavior a couple weeks ago. I'll admit my class's victory at the sports festival made me overexcited for a while, and that excitement made me insensitive about the situation with your friend. I shouldn't have acted that way towards you. I mean, I know you and your class probably think of me as a real jerk because of the history of how I've acted towards you guys, but I can assure you that I'm not that kind of person. I just don't have much of a soft spot for you Class A lot. Kendo squinted her eyes in vexation at that last sentence, which Monoma picked up on. But even I will admit when I go too far, and back at the cafeteria that day, I did just that. I don't expect you to forgive me entirely for how I acted, but I want to try and be better going forward for the benefit of my class and yours. So, again, I'm sorry about what I did. Are we cool? The blonde boy extended his hand to get a handshake from Midoriya, but he was slightly hesitant at the gesture. In his mind, Izuku was somewhat appreciative that Monoma regrets his actions, but he wasn't ready to fully accept his apology just yet. He decided to tell the Class B student how he felt about this. You know, Monoma, I'm not gonna lie. If Kendo didn't step in and stop you that day, I was going to beat the crap out of you in front of the entire cafeteria. And I was so angry with you that I would not have cared if I got detention for the rest of the month, or worse. Monoma squinted his eyes a tad and didn't respond to that statement as his arm remained extended. I mean, for God's sake, you're going to school here to be a pro hero someday. You should be more empathetic towards people in rough situations, you know? But you know what? Fine. I'll accept your apology for what you did, but I'll say this. I don't like you too much. I don't know why you act so bitter towards my class. We've been through enough since school started. So if you're really as sorry as you say you are and want to be better, I'll give you the chance to prove it. Do that, and then we can get along. Izuku reached out and shook the boy's hand as Monoma smiled and felt relieved that he buried the hatchet, but then became confused as he looked down at his hand as if there was something wrong. In his mind, the Class B student was thinking, what the heck? As if there was something off about what was happening. He was so befuddled that he didn't realize he was holding Midoriya's hand for a full 7 seconds, which confused Midoriya and made the situation a bit awkward. Okay, Monoma, you can let go of his hand now, Kendo said as Nato released his grasp at the class rep's words. I'm sorry, I just... never mind, it's nothing. The boy gave one last nod to Izuku as he walked back to the others in his class. Kendo was a tad wary as to what that prolonged handshake was about, but let it go for now. Alrighty then. Well, have a safe trip, Midoriya. I'll see you in your class at camp. Kendo called for her fellow classmates to begin boarding the bus, which followed with Yayorozu doing the same a moment later, being assisted with the task by her now new assistant class rep, Tsuyu Asui. Midoriya grabbed his bags and headed out with his class, unaware that Monoma was sneaking wary glances at Izuku the entire time he got on the class bus. In the back of his mind, he knew there was something very suspicious about Midoriya. About 30 minutes into their bus trip, the students of Class A were either listening to music, reading, taking a nap, or chatting with one another to pass the time as they waited to arrive to their destination. You guys have no idea how pumped I am for this getaway, Kaminari boasted. Thank God that stipulation about not going to camp if you failed the finals was a fluke. I would have died of jealousy, knowing most of you guys would be having all the fun without me. Yeah, no kidding. I haven't been on a trip like this since I was 8 years old. Zero added, campfires, s'mores, hiking, berry picking. This is gonna be a blast.
Yeah, summer camps are pretty cool and all, but I think you two are forgetting about the biggest thing about these campsites.
Kaminari and Sero looked at Mineta, wondering what big thing Mineta was talking about. The duo didn't bring up
the outdoor onsens! Surely you guys know about how onsens are usually set up at these camps, right? One side for boys and one for the girls, with the latter of the two being heaven on earth! The reason for my being! Think about it, guys. Imagine how amazing it would be to sneak a peek at the girls in our class with those Class B bombshells at the onsen together. Just the thought of it is enough to make me...
Before Mineta could go any further, Hagakure, unable to hold back her disgust, smacked the back of Mineta's head and proceeded to beat the boy's head like a bongo drum. Why? Why can't you go 10 minutes without saying something creepy about girls? Why? You are so gross! There goes Mineta being Mineta again, Asui observed. The fact that he's lasted this long at UA without getting kicked out is a questionable miracle, Jiro replied, who was sitting beside the frog girl. Well, since you're one of the class reps now, guess you'll have to be the one to put him in his place whenever he acts out. I think Hagakure's got that covered for me, Ribbit. As Asui giggled watching Hagakure beat up Mineta, Jiro had a thought. She turned behind her and faced Midoriya, who had his head down in his hero notebook, wondering to himself about his stand.
Hey, Midoriya.
Izuku looked up at Jiro, ceasing his rambling in the process.
Oh, hey, Jiro. Sorry, was I muttering to myself again?
A little. Well, whatever, it's a you thing. I will judge you. Mostly. Midoriya squinted his eyes at Jiro's playful teasing, but smirked as he knew she was just messing with him.
So, hey, have you spoken to Hagashka yet about that thing with Josuke? You know, about his adopted daughter or whatever?
Huh? His adopted... Oh, yeah, that! No, not yet. I was planning on it sooner, but, well, you know. But yeah, I'll definitely tell her this week while we're at camp. I just gotta find a way to tell her. Well, don't sit on it too much longer, dude. It's been over 2 weeks since he asked for our help? I mean, I'll help you think of a way to word it out to her, but if you need it, let's chat about that after we get to camp, okay?
Yeah, sure. I appreciate that, Jiro. Thanks.
Jiro smiled as she sat back in her seat, but as Jiro turned around, Midoriya looked down at his notes on a stand as he began remembering something that removed the smile on his face. This began a troubling phone call he received from Josuke Hagashka while he was en route to the Kamino Ward Mall to meet up with his classmates 2 days ago.
Oh, hey, Mr. Hagashka, sir. It's good to hear from you again. Listen, I'm sorry. I know it's been a couple of weeks, but I still haven't spoken to Hagashka yet about that thing with you and your father. I was planning on it, but one of my best friends passed away when I was at my internship, and it just slipped out of my mind.
But I promise to tell her as soon as I get the chance to do it, sir. Midoriya, okay. First off, I told you not to call me Mr. Hagashka. Just call me Josuke. Secondly, I'm sorry about your friend. I can understand that being a major thing to deal with. But it's okay. You didn't speak to your classmate about Shizuka. To be honest, that's no longer a major priority. Huh? What do you mean it's not a priority? I thought the Shizuka girl meeting Hagakure was your father's wish or whatever. It is. We do intend to help my old man with his request, but it's too dangerous and risky to do it at this time. Midoriya was quiet for a moment, wondering to himself what could have happened that would make it unsafe for someone to come to Japan. He thought that the pro-heroes populating the country would surely keep her safe if she ran into any kind of danger. But then Josuke told Midoriya the news about what happened with the Speedwagon facilities the night before, even bringing up that those responsible for the attack had stolen one of the golden arrows he told him about, the ones that give people stand abilities. He even informed Izuku that they looked at security camera footage from the Tokyo location, and with the aid of some local police, ID'd one of the perpetrators as a blue-haired man with hands all over himself, someone who goes by the alias Shigaraki, who led the attack on UA High a couple weeks back. In other words, these villains somehow knew about the arrow, have it in their possession, and intend to become stand users with the arrow. Josuke did not sugarcoat the seriousness of the situation and warned Midoriya that in the future he was going to face these guys whether he liked it or not. As he told the boy that for some reason he and other stand users he's crossed paths with will have yet to understand, stand users are destined to cross paths with other stand users. As such, Midoriya needed to utilize whatever opportunity he had to get stronger with his stand and ready himself for the fight ahead of him. He also told him some other important details he didn't tell Izuku the day he met him at the cafe, like how stands can only be harmed by other stand users, along with the warning that if Midoriya found a stand user calling trouble, that he was not to call the police or a pro-hero unless they had a very strong quirk. Otherwise, he would put their lives in danger by getting them involved. He gave Izuku the contact information of Okuyasu, Yukako, Koichi, along with the number of his nephew, Jotaro Kuja, who was on his way to Japan from the United States as they spoke, and told him to call one of them for assistance instead. He ended the phone call by telling the Green Net to remain calm about the situation, and that he and his nephew Jotaro were going to do everything they could to make sure those responsible for this attack would be stopped as soon as possible, without causing too much trouble. The League of Villains having stand powers? This is the last thing I needed right now. Hopefully Josuke and this Jotaro guy he mentioned can help. They do seem to know a lot more about fighting stand users than I do. This is going to be an interesting week. Midoriya was so caught up on his flashback, he didn't realize an hour had passed as the bus pulled into a rest area. Aizawa told everyone to get out and stretch, as this would be their one chance to do so before they'd arrive to camp. Everyone took in the sight of the cliffside as they wondered what kind of a rest area this was, why Class B wasn't present as they had left the school before they did, and in the words of Mineta, what kind of a rest stop this was as there were no bathrooms. For once, Mineta's actually got a good point. That is not about girls and being pervy. As everyone got out, the doors of a nearby car opened as two women dressed in cute cat-like costumes got out, greeted Aizawa and in a very cutesy choreographed way, introduced themselves to the student as Pixie Bob and Mandalay of the Wild Wild Pussycats. Midoriya immediately began fanboying at the sight of the two heroines as he told everyone that they were members of a famous search and rescue team with over a decade of experience. To which Pixie Bob responded with an offended paw to the face, telling Midoriya to watch his words as she was an 18-year-old girl at heart. After that introduction, Mandalay told the students that she, Pixie, and the other two Pussycat members would be looking after the students for the duration of their stay, and told everyone the camp they'd be staying at was their base of the mountain, roughly 10 miles away from where they were at. It didn't take long for the students to connect the dots as to why they were up on the cliffside and why Mandalay was telling them all this. They knew where this was going and began to panic as they rushed back for the bus, but Pixie Bob jumped in their way and used her quirk to manipulate the earth and sent the entire class flying down the mountainside. Once they hit the ground, Mandalay told them that they could use their quirks as much as they want, and that if they hurried up, they'd have enough time to make it to the camp before lunch, which would be served in about 3 hours. Mineta used the time to break from the group and find a secluded spot to take a leak, but was immediately ambushed by a massive monster that appeared from the aptly named Beast Forest. Koda, seeing the threat, used his quirk to calm down the beast, but it did nothing as the monster struck Mineta with a heavy blow as the boy became lost in a cloud of dust. Bakugo and Todoroki blitzed towards the monster to fight it off as Midoriya rushed in to find Mineta, finding the boy in a small crater bleeding from his forehead as he informed Izuku he thinks his arm is broken. Midoriya picked Mineta up and brought him to Yaoyorozu, asking the class rep if she could make some kind of medical aid to help Mineta.
Seriously, what is this? Some kind of pre-camp training exercise?
Hagakure shouted as Bakugo and Todoroki made quick work of the monster in their path. Their victory was short-lived, however, as another monster appeared from the ground shortly after. Yaoyorozu knew the dangers the students faced and told the class that if they didn't hurry through this challenge, they wouldn't be getting anything to eat. After tending to Mineta's wounds, Momo rallied the class as they steeled themselves for the fight ahead of them. Thank you all for sticking around, and I hope that you guys enjoyed. Before you leave, we would just like to let you know that We the Celestials has many other channels for your entertainment and viewing purposes. All the information you'll need is right below here in the description, so feel free to check out all the other incredible projects our team creates. Secondly, on behalf of We the Celestials, I'd like to thank everyone involved in the production of today's awesome content. Their details will also be in the description below. That's all for today's video. Goodbye, and shine on, you crazy diamonds!